news right here on your TV. It's Friday, November 20th, and I'm Jessica Kading. Taking a look at our local COVID-19 report today, 57 more positive tests have been reported in our region, and unfortunately, one additional death, that of an Oakville resident. When factoring in the recoveries, we now have 586 active cases in the region. 16 of those newly reported cases are in Burlington, 10 in Oakville, 24 in Milton, and 7 in Halton Hills. Premier Doug Ford announced that Toronto and Peel are both moving into the lockdown stage of COVID-19 control. Big box stores, grocery stores, and pharmacies will remain open, as well as doctor and dental offices, and the Premier is urging people not to panic shop. Schools and daycares will also remain open. Here in Halton, we remain in the red zone of control, but limits for all publicly organized gatherings have been lowered to only 5 people indoors and 25 outdoors. Local medical officers of health are being granted the ability to enforce these rules through ticketing with a minimum fine of $750. For those of you with businesses in Halton, the Finance Minister Rod Phillips announced that funding to help you will begin next week.
All of us know a small business owner struggling due to COVID-19. We see the anxiety in their eyes when we get a haircut or visit our favorite restaurant. COVID-19 has hit them hard, but in Ontario, they have responded with resolve and resilience. They've adapted and provided safe experiences for their customers and employees. These necessary public health measures we have outlined today will create new challenges. But as we committed in Ontario's action plan, Protect, Support and Recover, we will continue to be there to protect jobs and support employers. As Premier Ford announced, we will double the money available to support employers affected by the necessary public health measures we are taking to protect people from the second wave. The $600 million we are providing will help businesses cover fixed costs associated with energy and property tax bills. The additional resources we are making available for affected businesses today is why we set aside contingency funds in our budget, ensuring that we can respond to the needs of the people of Ontario as the pandemic unfolds. Applications open this Monday for businesses in regions that were already designated either as modified stage 2 or the red control zone. Money for these businesses will begin to flow next week. Any eligible business in a region in Ontario designated as in the red control zone or lockdown today can apply starting Tuesday. These rebates cover the entire length of time that a business is required to temporarily close or significantly restrict services. I urge every eligible business owner, whether you're in Peel, Toronto, as well as York, Hamilton, Halton, and now Durham and Waterloo regions, to apply for this support.
During the first set of lockdowns, Halton had seen an influx of people traveling from hot zones for services that are still available here but forbidden in their own community, potentially causing further spread. With Toronto and Peel in a full lockdown, the Premier was asked whether anything will be done to prevent cross-region travel from happening again and if travel restrictions were considered.
Yeah, this was discussed in depth, and this was mentioned. I will send it to Dr. Williams, but this was in depth discussed. Also, places of worship, that was an hour-long discussion. But at the end of the day, and I'm a big faith believer, and I support our places of worship like you wouldn't believe. At the end of the day, I will listen and always listen to Dr. Williams and the health table, and places of worship were a tough one, let me tell you, but I'm not going to waver. We're always going to listen to the medical advice. I'll pass it to Dr. Williams.
So, Colin, the question of travel is an important one. We are asking people who are in the high areas not to go to lower color areas in that aspect there, so that doesn't only apply to lockdown versus red, it's red versus orange, etc., to limit those and not expose those populations to that unless it's really an essential visit and necessary to do so. So we haven't put that restriction on. We are asking people to adhere to that because around the lockdowns, as the Minister of Health announced, there are some have moved into red all around the GTA, so they are in the same type of number of limitations considerably equal to that, and have to adhere to those limitations in certain facilities, social gatherings, etc., and even in the orange level around there. So adjacent has some of those same impacts, and those individuals want to do their best to keep their numbers down as well. So we're all in this together. That's why we're doing the framework, asking each group to do what they need to do, and that means you're responsible in your area, but also for the areas outside yours, because we know it affects the whole system. So we haven't put in travel restrictions. We're going to be trusting and confident that the public will do the right thing. And also those other ones in the outside areas do have limitations imposed by the red and the orange level restrictions.
Parents of students in the Halton District School Board have been informed that the schools will close on November 30th, but just for that one day. The reason is that there are so many students changing whether they'll remain in class or change to virtual and vice versa that the teachers need a day of preparation. School will resume on December 1st, and we're told it's unlikely that there will be any extended break, but the school board will prepare for any eventuality. In other Halton District School Board news, the 2020 water testing results in Halton revealed that 17 schools in Halton have at least one water fixture that exceeds the acceptable level of lead outlined in the Safe Drinking Water Act. These fixtures include water bottle filling stations, sink taps, and drinking fountains. The affected schools will follow the direction of the Ministry of the Environment, and any fixtures whose lead content is not lowered by flushing will be sealed and covered to prevent usage. Earlier today, prior to the provincial announcement, I spoke with Milton's Mayor Gord Krantz about how the town is coping with COVID-19 as well as the red zone restrictions.
Well, as far as I'm personally concerned, I think Milton and the three other municipalities in Halton, I think we're dealing with it reasonably well. And did we want to be in the red zone? Definitely not. But we're part of the GTA, as I refer to it. We're so close to the big smoke, as I refer to it very crudely, at the city of Toronto, and where most of the population is. So I think it was probably inevitable. As I often say, if the elephant sneezes, we're liable to catch the cold, and that's probably what's happened in this particular instance. And by the way, the four area mayors and the regional chair, we meet at least once a week to talk about worldly affairs. Especially as it affects each one of our municipalities and the region of Halton. So we're, in my opinion, reasonably well coordinated with some of our services, what we provide and what we don't provide. So I think consistency is fairly important. And in Halton, I believe, Jessica, that we've done a pretty good job in that regard.
Mayor Krantz further explained that the reactions and feedback he receives from the public is from one extreme to the other.
Well, I guess, if I was to take it on the scale of 1 to 10, probably a good 9 would say what we're doing here in Milton and Halton, keeping in mind that we're guided by the regional medical officer of health. And I think for the most part, we take her advice. When I talk about we, the average citizen, we, the elected people, and that includes the people that I talk to as well. But I refer to them as bookends. I get the bookend that's extreme on one side. They would shut everything down in a heartbeat. And then you get the other extreme that says anything and everything goes. And both of those extremes, Jessica, always concerns me. I think the biggest majority of us in Halton here in Milton, I refer to it, we're in the mushy middle, just using a whole ton of common sense. And I think that's what prevails for the most part here in Milton and Halton. But you'll get those bookends that that they have different views. And of course, in a democratic society as we live in, they're entitled to it, as misguided as some of them might be.
Milton's mayor, the longest reigning mayor in Canada, had one further message to share with residents today.
Well, yeah, stay safe, stay healthy. And is that an overused cliche? Maybe, but it's very, very sincere, not only from me, but I think from other elected people, regardless of what level. I think we're very sincere on protecting society, even though I know we're criticized from time to time, but that comes with the territory. But there is really one thing, and of course, small business has really hurt in this pandemic. So I would suggest that people get out, regardless whether they go through a drive-through or takeout, patronize those small businesses in your respective communities. So that's so important when we come out of this. And again, one of the things that I should make mention, even though, when you and I are doing this program, the weather's kind of nice out there, but I know it's going to turn. but all the municipalities in Halton and across the GTA that I'm so familiar with, we've gone out of our way to try and accommodate such as restaurants and opening up patios on town property or whatever property other than, private property. So patronize those, even if you got to put a jacket on and go and have a coffee or hamburger or whatever it is, patronize them. So, but with that, I just want to thank the biggest majority of the people in Halton and Milton here for being thoughtful of one another. Stay safe, stay happy, and enjoy the cool weather that's coming along.
The Canadian government is continuing their green initiatives this week by committing to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Melissa Candelaria reports.
The federal government tabled new legislation that would help Canada get to net zero carbon emissions by 2050. Milton MP Adam Van Couverden says this is a massive step in the right direction in achieving a greener Canada.
2050 sounds like it's a long ways away, and you're right, it is a long ways away. But what this piece of regulation does is it provides 5-year increments. So we're going to be achieving targets in 2025, in 2030, 2035, and so on, all the way until 2050. And it's really important to recognize that this is a legal framework. So it means that any successive government, any future government, whether they're conservative or NDP or Green or Liberal, they have to abide by these regulations because we've decided as a country that it's absolutely vital. And what these net zero targets are going to allow us to do is not only reduce the emissions, that we individually create with driving cars and heating our homes and everything, but it's also going to ensure that industry plays a part too. Reducing the emissions is one thing, but also increasing the capacity to deal with them is another. And we're also investing in green energy. We're investing in new innovations, and that's all with the goal and ambition of creating a cleaner, more resilient future for our kids and grandkids.
This legislation comes after an announcement back in October that would see single-use plastics banned by 2021. Van Couverden says the ban and now this legislation helps Canada follow the commitment many cities and other jurisdictions in Canada have made to reach the net zero carbon emissions goal by 2050.
It's also joining about 120 other countries, including the UK and Germany and Italy and France, who have all made targets to be net zero by 2050. This is about the sustainability of our planet. This is about the viability of our species. If we don't plan for this, then humans, we don't have a future on this planet. It's very, very clear that climate change is playing a role in all sorts of things. And yes, it includes pandemics.
Now, with the COVID-19 pandemic dominating our focus at times, Van Couverden says it is vital to continue work on the climate change crisis.
And anybody who thinks that climate change and pandemics, the economy and jobs and human health aren't connected, needs to do a little bit of reading. It's really, really important that we recognize how intersectional all of these important subjects are. Of the human health aspect of everything, of greenhouse gas emissions and what we're putting out into the environment, and yes, plastics in the environment, they're all connected. One of the problems that I think with mainstream environmentalism is we talk about the ice caps and the polar bears and the Amazon rainforest instead of our own backyard. And here in Halton, we have an environment too. And it's the water that we drink and the air that we breathe and the food that we eat. And we have to take better responsibility to ensure the sustainability of all of those practices. And really, it's about the viability of us, our neighbors, and our town, and our kids and grandkids. Of course, polar bears and the ice caps and the Amazon rainforest is important, but they're so far away, and the environment is really important right here in Halton.
Reporting for Halton News, I'm Melissa Candelaria.
As reported, Toronto and Peel have moved into lockdown, but their schools will remain open. Oakville MPP Crawford addresses why schools are considered a safer space than some other places in terms of COVID-19 transmission.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And as it stands right now, schools are not a major place of transmission. So there are some cases that have been found of COVID in schools, but they tend to be brought into the schools as opposed to transmitting within the schools. So I think Minister Lecce, the various school boards, and the Ministry of Education across the province have done a phenomenal job in that we've had very few intra-class, intra-school transmissions. And it should also be pointed out, with that as well, that Ontario has over 1 million kids in school, but we also have offline learning as well. So kids are learning online on their computers, at homes. In some cases, they have that option For example, in Quebec, they don't have that option. So I think we're doing a good job of delivering education, which is critical through this difficult period with as low an impact as possible on the spread of COVID.
The provincial government would also like to acknowledge that November is Women Abuse Prevention Month. I spoke with MPP Crawford about some of the provincial initiatives.
Yeah, so our government has been very strong in terms of supporting women, and you're right, November is Women's Abuse Prevention Month, and I think it's an important time to reflect on what we're doing as individuals and as a society, and also put some money where our mouth is. So Ontario is investing $307 million between 2020 and 2025 on a new anti-human trafficking study. Now, unfortunately, human trafficking is becoming one of the fastest growing crimes worldwide, and it affects us right here in Halton. So our government is playing a very important role in trying to reduce this, bringing awareness to people as well, and expanding services for young victims of sex trafficking. So I certainly want to bring a shout out to a couple of organizations here in Halton that are doing a great job at bringing awareness and helping women in need. There's the Halton Women's Place and Savis of Halton. So I certainly want to shout out to those great organizations that are helping us locally.
Meanwhile, Burlington MPP Jane McKenna made this statement in the legislature today.
Speaker, more than 20 years ago, the transgender community came together to advocate for a national day to commemorate and mourn those who have lost their lives as a result of transphobic violence. To this day, transgender and gender diverse people are still subjected to violence and prejudice because of their gender identity and expression. More devastating still, every year many will lose their lives due to anti-trans prejudice worldwide. Ontario's freedom and tolerance is a beacon to the world. Our diversity is a strength and provides a foundation of equality and acceptance for all. Bigotry and hatred has no place in our province, Speaker. On November 20th, the Trans Day of Remembrance, we reflect on and mourn deeply those lives that have been cut short. This year, we cannot do a flag raising, but it is still important to remember the flag, which symbolizes awareness and respect. To the trans community, their families and loved ones, our government mourns with you. And we say to all Ontarians, let's continue to work together to ensure that everyone can feel proud of who they are, be free to express themselves, and safe to live their lives. Today and every day, we must remember and work to build a society where we treat one another with respect, regardless of gender expression and identity, and where hate has no place, Speaker.
Very nice. We do need to take a short break now, but we will be back with more on what life is like for those with post-traumatic stress disorder. Stay with us. Welcome back to Halton News. Up now we have Dr. Bhattacharya of the Empathy Clinic explaining what it's like for someone with post-traumatic stress disorder when they compare the past and the present.
Hi, this is Dr. Ashok Bhattacharya, coming to you from the Empathy Clinic here in Oakville. I want to follow up on some of the conversations we've had about post-traumatic stress disorder. So during this time of stress for all of us, it's important to realize that at some point this experience will be in our past, and we will talk about it with reflection. Recently we had Remembrance Day, and it's important to sometimes remember some of our traumas, but important to put them in the right perspective. So let me use my hands as an example. My hands are almost exactly the same size. However, if we have something that happens in the past, typically over time, that will fade away. If we have something in the present, then that will stay in the present until it becomes the past. Now, with PTSD, that's all backwards. If someone has an experience in the present, it doesn't fade. In fact, the past stays in for the focus, and things that happen in the present don't change. They stay in distant from the person. So the past experience that the person is having tends to persist. The treatment is to turn that into this picture, so that the past can become in the past. We can put that in the right place, and we can stick in the present. So doing lots of therapy over the years with people with PTSD is begin to reveal, to me at least, that a basic problem is putting the trauma in the past. That doesn't mean it goes away, and it certainly doesn't mean that the triggers stop. What it means is that the person is more capable of functioning again because they're now in their present. So let's put the past in the past when it's time to do that, so we can move on properly. Take care. We'll see you next time.
What a beautiful, warm day for November 20th. Here's a look at Brant and Lakeshore as we head into our 5-day weather outlook. I hope you were able to enjoy some of that warmth, because in our 5-day forecast, it won't get quite that warm. We're only reaching a high of 6 degrees tomorrow afternoon with a mix of sun and clouds. On Sunday, prepare for rain showers, if not some snow flurries. That rain is expected to continue on Monday. Sunshine will make an appearance again on Tuesday, and then back to that mix of rain or snow by Wednesday. And now a look to how some of Halton's top companies performed on the markets today. Stay with us. We'll be right back with the latest from the Burlington Food Bank after this. And now the latest from the Burlington Food Bank.
We just wanted to thank a lot of the corporate donors that have come forward for us. We've seen a lot of corporate donations, some checks, some food donations, some really great ways that they're honoring their customers or honoring their employees, going out, purchasing food for us or making cash donations, and then letting those staff know that a donation's been made in their honor, just in remembrance of sort of reminding them of how much they're celebrating Christmas and knowing that there's people here in Burlington that are going without food right now. So thank you so much for doing that. We also wanted to let people know that there's a bunch of food drives going on currently, and one's coming up. The Gift of Giving Back's going to have a big announcement coming out soon. We're looking forward to that. And also there's a Ward 2 food drive going on this weekend. Please support that, and most importantly, stay safe, wash your hands, wear your masks when you can't socially distance, and make sure you do socially distance whenever you get that opportunity.
We'll be back tomorrow live at 5. For Halton News, I'm Jessica Kading.